Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the AfghanEye podcast. I'm your host Sangar Paykhar and I'm joined by my co-host Ahmed-Waleed Kakar. And today in this episode we have an esteemed guest from our neighboring country, Miss Amina Khan. She's the director of Center for Middle East, Africa and Afghanistan at the Institute for Strategic Studies in Islamabad, Pakistan. Miss Amina Khan, welcome to the AfghanEye podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, sure. So, Amina Khan, I just want to sort of get to know you better. So, uh, the Institute for Strategic Studies in Islamabad. What kind of, with regard to Afghanistan in particular, especially yourself, what kind of work would you say that you do? What areas do you look at?
So basically, all areas vis-a-vis Afghanistan, and particularly those that are of concern to Pakistan. So naturally, that encompasses everything that happens in Afghanistan because we're such close neighbors. So basically, at the Institute, let me just tell you a little about it. It was established in 1973, and it's meant to provide policy inputs to the government on our relationship vis-a-vis Afghanistan. So we've done a lot of work on, the recent measures trying to make up for the losses, particularly our policy towards the Afghan refugees, which hasn't been something that I can, be proud of. But, we've been doing things like that, border management. We provide policy inputs to the Foreign Office and to other ministries. And the aim is to kind of reduce the gap in communication and mistrust that continues to, unfortunately, exist between these two neighbors. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what we do. And apart from that, apart from providing policy briefs to national institutions, we have a journal. We publish extensively. I've written extensively on Afghanistan, and that's about it. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the reports and journals because I read a couple of your articles.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, I just wanted to ask you about them sort of casually later on. But how and why would you say you became interested in Afghanistan specifically?
Well, okay, it's an interesting story. In fact, when I joined the Institute, I was meant to work on Central Asia. And this was straight after I graduated. And then my boss, who's currently in the PTI government, Dr. Shireen Mazari, I don't know whether you've heard of her, but she's...
Yes, of course.
Right, okay.
Mazari.
Mazari, exactly. So she told me, I'm a Pashtun, I'm from the Mumand agency. So she took that into account and she said, work on Afghanistan. And I'll be honest here, and I'm ashamed. At that time, I was like, well, why would I want to work on Afghanistan? There's violence and there's nothing. But honestly, since I started working on Afghanistan, I've, just not stopped. And I just find it so interesting. It's fascinating. It's tragic at the same time. And plus, there are so many commonalities. I grew up with Afghans in Peshawar. Then in England, I had Afghans as friends. So I think it's just been, just something that's come naturally. And unfortunately, because the country's been engulfed in such turmoil, I think it's just captured my attention. In fact, I'm doing my PhD on the Afghan Taliban. I did my master's thesis at Royal Holloway on the Taliban, and so my PhD, hopefully, if I get it done, is on that too. So I think probably that's the reason why I've been so interested.
And are you planning on doing the PhD in the UK or in Pakistan?
No. I've nearly done it. I'm in the writing phase, and if any of you are in it, I'm just stuck. I've got kids, and I've got work, and now we have COVID, so I'm just trying to pen everything down. And the Taliban just keep on changing, consistently. So it's not making my life any easier.
Yeah, sure. So, how long ago did you start working at the institute? How long has it been?
I started in 2005, and then in between, I took a year out to do a second master's when I went to Royal Holloway, and then after that, I've been here ever since.
Sure. Okay. Sure. So, I wanna dive sort of right into it. So, for example, with regard to Afghanistan and Pakistan, so we know that there's been a peace deal signed between the US and the Taliban, which on the ground hasn't really meant much. Now, what does this mean for Pakistan specifically?
Okay. Well, I think, everybody was very optimistic when the agreement was signed. I won't call it a peace agreement because it's not in any way achieved peace at all. It is just an agreement that was signed between the Americans and the Taliban. And I think here in Pakistan, we have two quarters. Certain quarters within our policymakers do feel that since the agreement has been signed, it's a win-win situation. The Americans are going to leave and everything's going to be hunky-dory. But this is a very, minute or a small community that believes in this way. The others, including me, feel, that the agreement hasn't delivered, particularly on the major aspects. And I'll start with the ceasefire, I think, or the reduction in violence, which is so pivotal for the peace process. And, while I do understand certain points from the Taliban side, the fact that they continue to target and kill innocent Afghans is a breach of the agreement. The fact that they signed the agreement, which entails that they will not kill American troops, is not good enough. If you can sign an agreement with the country that, overthrew you from power, and you can accept them as an equal stakeholder, why can you not accept the Afghan government? So I think here it is important that if the intra-Afghan talks do take place in the future, it is the Americans' responsibility to ensure a reduction in violence that leads to a ceasefire. This is paramount, and I think this is something that Pakistan has also been pushing for. Maybe they could do it in a better way, and they could be more, forceful about it. Unfortunately, Islamabad hasn't, but I think this is something that really, really needs to be focused on. And secondly, I think what is the future aspects? What will Afghanistan look like after the intra-Afghan talks? There is no question, let alone discussion, on what kind of a future political setup there will be. And I think these are critical aspects that were overlooked in the agreement, and these need to be focused on. And I think also, while a lot of people, are speaking about the reduction of troops and American forces, I think it has to be a very responsible and a sustained withdrawal. Because I think, Pakistan, for one, will really, really feel the repercussions if the Americans leave in a haphazard manner. And I think we've seen this in the past.
So if we're talking about Pakistan's attitude towards war in Afghanistan and the Taliban in particular, I think it's useful that we draw a parallel between the 1990s, and the present day. So a lot of the time when people discuss Pakistan's policy towards Afghanistan, the term that's used is strategic depth. And, strategic depth, for those that don't know, is the idea that Pakistan is on a perpetual war footing with India, and therefore it wants a friendly government in Afghanistan, which it could fall back on in the case of war with India. It doesn't want to fight a war on two fronts. It wants to actually have Afghanistan support it. And to that extent, Pakistan has supported people like specifically Gulbuddin Hikmatyar, Hizb-e Islami, and later on the Taliban in the mid to late 90s. Is that still relevant today?
Look, the fact remains, particularly if you look at the current state of affairs between India and Pakistan, our entire Afghan policy, unfortunately, has been based on our relationship with India. And I think that's a grave mistake that we've made in the past, and hence even our recognition of the Taliban. And I often question, what did we gain from recognizing or supporting the Taliban? Yes, we limited India's role in Afghanistan for a couple of years, but look at the amount of inroads and investment and development India has done during the past now 18, maybe 19 years. So I think that was a mistake that was made on our part. And, strategic depth, I won't deny, was a concept. But I think there is, and there has been a realization in Pakistan post-2012 that India does have a presence in Afghanistan, and Pakistan cannot base its relationship with Afghanistan on the basis of India.